By now, you've all heard of Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0, the latest book published by Mama Jumbo Shrimp. It's more than just another wine book. The fully updated second edition was inspired by students of the Vinitaly International Academy and painstakingly reviewed and revised by an expert panel of certified Italian wine ambassadors from across the globe. The book also includes an edition by Professore Attilio Scienza, Italy's leading vine geneticist. The benchmark producers feature is a particularly important aspect of this revised edition. The selection makes it easier for our readers to get their hands on a bottle of wine that truly represents a particular grape or region. To pick up a copy, just head to Amazon.com or visit us at mamajumboshrimp.com. For all the super wine geeks out there, we have a special new series dedicated to you. We are reading excerpts from our new edition of Italian Wine Unplugged 2.0. Wine lovers, tune in for your weekly fix only on Italian Wine Podcast. If you want to own a copy of this new must-read Italian wine textbook, just go to Amazon.com or visit us at mamajumboshrimp.com.
Other classifications. Italy has additional wine categories, which can be confusing. These sub-denominations are established only for wines of DOC and DOCG quality levels, as a guide to specific characteristics relating to producing zone, alcohol content, aging potential, and more. These denominations are mentioned on the labels when the wine meets those specific characteristics. The qualifications currently authorized by law are essentially three: classico or storico, historical, riserva, and superiore. Classico. Classico for DOC and DOCG wines, or storico, historical for DOCG and DOC sparkling wines, are qualifications reserved for wines from specific areas of particular historical significance known to have been associated with quality wine producing for a long time. The Classico denomination refers to a sub-area indicated by a particular disciplinaire or protocol corresponding to the historical production zone of a specific wine. An example is the difference between Chianti wine produced in the wider area of Tuscany and Chianti Classico produced in the small designated area historically most associated with the wine. Other examples include Valpolicella Classico, Orvieto Classico, Verdicchio Castelli di Jesi Classico, Soave Classico. Once again, although the merits of such subdivisions aren't clear, it is in practice the competence of the individual producer also plays a crucial role in the wine quality. In other words, a producer who owns vines with a Classico zone and follows all the appropriate production guidelines can earn the right to make a Classico wine, but if that producer is not sufficiently talented, careful, or hand-working, the wine still may not be particularly good. Riserva. The Riserva qualification is found in many DOCG and DOC wines. The Riserva label is attributed to DOC and DOCG wines with a minimum aging period of no less than 2 years for red wines, no less than 1 year for white wines, no less than 2 years for sparkling wines produced with a Charmant method, and 3 years for sparkling wine produced using the classical method. The extra aging time for Riserva qualification can be longer depending on specific disciplinary guidelines. Often, these wines have an alcohol content greater than the non-Riserva wines. The characteristics are variable depending on the grape variety, since different grapes provide different alcohol content. Such variation happens because some grapes accumulate sugar much easier than others, or because they grow in hotter environments. For the OCG wines, the Riserva qualification is related to mandatory aging periods of 3 to 5 years. In simpler terms, a Riserva wine almost always refers to a wine that is perceived to be better quality and is aged for a longer amount of time in oak, usually 2 additional years, As the wine is made from the producer's higher quality grapes and is richer and more concentrated than a non-reserva wine, it ought to be age-worthy, having benefited from more time in oak. Unfortunately, depending on the producer, the grape and levels of care and attention, many reserva wines are simply overly oaked and fruity challenged, reminding consumers that even some basic knowledge about the wine's provenance will help to avoid paying higher prices for unworthy bottles labeled Reserva. Superiore. This qualification is very similar to the previous one. Superiore is the term given to DOC and DOCG wines to indicate a higher alcohol content than the base wine and a mandatory minimum aging. The Superiore guidelines adhere to the same legislative standards of the Riserva rules. Compared to the entry-level wines, wines with the Superiore denomination are typically aged at least 1 extra year and have a higher alcohol content, plus 0.5%. Depending on each disciplinaire, there could be a requirement for a longer aging period and a lower yield per hectare than those mandated for base wines. Examples of Superiore wines include Barbera d'Asti Superiore, Barbera d'Alba Superiore, Valtellina Superiore, and Frascati Superiore.
Are you enjoying this podcast? There is so much more high-quality wine content available from Mama Jumbo Shrimp. Check out our new wine study maps, our books on Italian wine, including Italian Wine Unplugged, The Jumbo Shrimp Guide to Italian Wine, Sangiovese Lambrusco and Other Stories, and much, much more on our website, mamajumboshrimp.com. Now back to the show.
Novello. Novello, new, can be attributed to IGT, DOC, and DOCG wines, both still and sparkling, which are released for consumption at midnight 01 of the 6th day of November in the year the grapes were grown and harvested. It is equivalent to a French Nouveau. The wines must contain at least 40% of wine produced with whole grapes using carbonic maceration techniques with a minimum alcohol content of 11% and with the vintage year on the label. A minimum carbonic maceration requirement of 40% is very low, and it effectively denies the wines the chance to be anything other than light-bodied and fruity. Due to its vast variety of grapes and terroirs, Italy has the potential to make truly outstanding Novello wines. Whether the carbonic maceration minimum requirement of 40% should be raised is a point of contention, but until it is, we can continue to expect rather unremarkable Novello wines on the Italian market. Examples of better Novello wines are those made in Trentino and Alto Adige, with other interesting wine emerging from other regions, including Sicily and Calabria. As always, provenance is important where considering a purchase, and with Novello, tasting is often the best way to find good simple wines. Passito or Vino Passito. IGT, DOC, or DOCG wines obtained from the fermentation of grapes through natural drying or drying achieved in a controlled environment are described as Passito or Vino Passito. These sweet wines are generally made from air-dried grapes. A fortified version of this category, often labeled liquoroso in Italian, also exists in the Vino Passito Liquoroso qualification, means a fortified sweet wine, a classification attributed only to IGT wines. Note that few people in Italy, even those who write about wines, have much understanding of the differences between late harvest and air-dried wines, and often use the name interchangeably to describe a sweet wine generically. As seen in different cases, it is not always accurate, as wines obtained via the two processes can be startlingly different, with varying levels of acidity and complex flavor profiles. Vineyard names. Vineyard names are attributed to the OC and the OCG wines obtained from grapes grown in a designated parcel of land corresponding to a specific plot long identified by a traditional name. categorization, and some useful scientific concepts. Italy has more wine varieties than any other country. Approximately 30% of all the wine grape varieties in the world are Italian. As mentioned in the historical overview, many of these grapes have called Italy their home for centuries, while others were imported to the country even earlier by Greek colonists and seafaring Phoenician traders. Some of Italy's grapes are not truly native, in the sense that they did not spring from Italian soil. Rather, many of these grapes are considered local, in that they have been recognized as Italian and associated with Italian terroir for hundreds of years. Thanks to scientific research and genetic testing, we now understand that many of Italy's grape varieties are not directly related to Greek or Near East grapes. Grapevines have been proven to be plants that undergo rapid genetic mutations over just a few reproductive cycles. It is therefore unsurprising that single grape varieties have changed both genetically and morphologically over time, often very quickly. Over the millennia in which grapes have been grown in Italian soils, they have adapted to their new habitat, to the extent that they now bear little resemblance of their ancient ancestors. They are, to all intents and purposes, native to Italy. No other country can boast such a wide variety of grapes from which to make wine. In fact, this is one of the most distinctive characteristics of Italian wine, for no other place on earth offers wine lovers such a dazzling and, at times, dizzying choices of wine. The officially recognized number of wine grapes in Italy is 590, with more varieties discovered recently and awaiting genetic identification. Researchers estimate that Campania alone has a further 100 varieties to be identified, and Sardinia about 150, evidence of the incredible richness of Italy's viticulture. On this basis, a figure of between 600 and 1,000 native Italian grapes seems like a reasonable estimate.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, Cin Cin.